Greetings, Saints. As we move towards the weekend, I want to share a thought that is in line with many of the thoughts I've been sharing lately regarding the afflictions and the stressors and the pains and the sufferings we face in our journey. And many of the readings for this weekend in the scripture from the Revised Common Lectionary are tied to the storms of life. Jesus in the storm at sea with the disciples in Mark 4, and the storms in the history of Israel that in Psalm 107 David talks about, and Job going through his storm. All of us face storms. It is the nature of life to be stormy. I can remember with fondness the first time I heard the hymn written by Manny Ferguson. She wrote it in 1897. It got published just around the time when the Pentecostal outpouring was just beginning to be released in North America at the turn of the century, the 20th century. And when she wrote Blessed Quietness, she had to be in a special place because that chorus, blessed quietness, holy quietness, what assurance in my soul on the stormy sea, he, Jesus, speaks peace to me, and the billows cease to roll. Perhaps my favorite arrangement of that was from the late Clay Evans, the great African-American preacher from Chicago, and his fabulous choir at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, in their album where they did a marvelous job on that great hymn of the church. But the life we live is a life that's lived on a sea of chaos. The winds in the sea are very unpredictable, and any ship's captain will tell you that. Well, the fact is, you are on a ship headed towards a port of call. You have meaning, you have purpose, but you have to direct the rudder of that ship even when it gets stormy, and you have to learn how to tack with or against the winds by the sails on that ship in order for you to arrive safely at your desired harbor. Listen to the words of David, the ancient sweet psalmist of Israel, as it relates to the storms of life. And then let me just make a few comments about stress, the fight or flight response, and your mindset. Those who go down to the sea in ships doing business on the high waters, they saw the works of Yahweh and his wonderful deeds in the deep. For he spoke and raised up a stormy wind, and it whipped up its waves. They rose to the heavens, they plunged to the depths, their soul melted in calamity. Remember the disciples? Carest thou not that we perish? They reeled and staggered like a drunkard and said they were at their wits' end. The disciples were there. Then they cried out to Yahweh in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distresses. He made the storm be still, and their waves became calm. Jesus rebuked the winds and spoke calmness to the sea. Then they were glad because they grew silent, that is, the waves and the wind. So he guided them to their desired harbor. He guided them to their desired harbor. Let them give thanks to Yahweh for his loyal love and for his wonderful deeds to the children of humankind, and let them exalt him in the congregation of the people and praise him in the assembly of the elders. Beloved, navigating the turbulent waters of life when the storms of life are raging. Again, Douglas Miller, the late Douglas Miller, though the storms keep on raging in my life, and at times it's hard to tell the night from the day. The idea that our souls have been anchored in the Lord isn't something you can sing unless it's something you've experienced in the midst of extreme stress. Physiologically, stress is anything that causes your body to respond by releasing stress hormones like cortisol and like adrenaline. And so stress is essentially whatever that event is that causes your body's fight or flight response to kick in. And so when your body reacts to stressors, that's called the fight or flight response. I'm either going to fight or I'm going to flee. Well, what happens when the stress is so intense and sustained that your stress response gets stuck and you kind of stay in fight or flight mode and can't come down? I've been there. I know what that's like. That is a pretty intense, excruciatingly painful season when you go through those kinds of things. And many of you may have gone through them, and many of you may be facing them right now. And it's wonderful when you get past them. But when you're going through them, learning how to understand what is at stake when we are stressed is important, because it's not just the stress that's happening outside of us. The storm was all around the disciples in the boat, and the water was getting in the boat, but the effects of the storm were getting inside the disciples. Jesus was asleep to the storm. The disciples were awake to the storm. Jesus was awake to the goodness of his Father. The disciples were asleep to that. And stress caused them to have extremely negative thoughts. Don't you care that we're perishing? Extremely negative emotions, because they were in a frenzy. They were panicking. And their physical reaction was everything but calmness. They chose to cope out of their pain. And as a result of that, the only one who could deliver them was Jesus. Now, the lesson of the storm at sea isn't to teach you how to rebuke the winds, because honestly, they were intended to trust Jesus while he was sleeping, that he would guide them to their desired haven. There are a lot of times, I did a series years ago called Wake Up the King Within You, as it relates to the storms of life, but there are times where it seems like Jesus is asleep inside us, but he's ever attentive. God never sleeps. He never slumbers. And he's ever attentive to us, but he's observing us to see how we're going to respond and interpret what's happening to us. If he said we're going to get to our desired harbor, we're going to get there, because no word from God can return to God without accomplishing the purpose for which he sent it out. And you need to understand that every time you go through stress, you make meaning out of it. You are giving it meaning. You can't separate stress from the meaning you make of it. And the meaning you make of it is tied to how deeply whatever it is you're stressed about concerns you. Well, for the disciples, they were concerned for their life. Don't you care that we're perishing? So the meaning was, this stress is going to take us out. Now, there are a lot of times we can go to that extreme, even if the stress isn't quite that extreme. We can feel like the stress is going to take us out. It can be traumatic. And the idea that we should say, well, people shouldn't get that stress, well, you're not in their skin. You and I don't have the right to say what people should react to or shouldn't react to, because how we think about something is based on our personality, our temperament, our personal history, the environment we were raised in, the nurturing or lack of nurturing we got. You got to give everybody room to understand that their response to stress is determined by their beliefs about stress. There are a lot of things that we want to come to terms with in life, but we can't come to terms with them until we recognize we all have a point of view about stress. The point from which we view stress is vitally important. It's tied to our mindset. And the more we get accustomed growing up to a certain point of view about stress, the more that point of view becomes a mindset that gets embedded with each passing instance of stress and has a lasting impact. And so we probably could say that the disciples in the boat, at the point of reacting the way they did, now these are skilled fishermen. They've probably been on Galilee when these kinds of winds have stirred up before and realized these are really dangerous. These are Category 5 hurricane winds, gale force winds coming down off the mountains into the lake and literally stirring up out of nowhere the kind of Category 5 storm that can literally destroy you. 180-mile-an-hour wind. So how do you cast your care on him, knowing he cares for you, when you feel like, hey, all hell is broken loose and the devil is going to destroy our lives? Well, you and I have to come to terms with the fact that Christ is indeed with us in the boat. Christ is with us in here. And even when he doesn't say anything, it doesn't mean he's not there. It doesn't mean he's not able. It doesn't mean he's not willing. And it doesn't mean he's forsaken us. It means we have to learn how to trust him to guide us. Now, there are all sorts of ways to manage a storm, and you will face many in your journey, but you want to face them guided by the spirit of hope. because God, who is the God of hope, wants to fill you with all joy and peace in believing. And your hope enables you to develop a pathway to where you're going. Hope involves the will to get there and the way to get there. And the Spirit will strengthen your will and show you not just one way. You know, the old adage, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to get to the desired haven, the desired harbor, the desired port of call that God has called you to. There's not just one way to arrive at your future. There are a number of ways to get there, especially in light of the storms of life. And Christ wants you to be adaptable and flexible and resilient, and he will build that into you. But he can only build that into you as you go through stressors and learn how to see them from a different point of view, so you can interpret them differently, so you can respond to them differently. After the storm was over, it says in Mark 4 that they were more terrified of Jesus than they were of the storm. They said, "Who is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Well, this is Jesus on the outside. The Spirit hasn't come yet to dwell on the inside with them. So these lessons are tied to showing us how we respond to Jesus, even the one who indwells us by his Spirit. Learning how to live by the faith of the one who loved us and gave himself for us requires letting him show us, without hiding from it, where we're avoiding to look at stress in a way that will enable us to be delivered from it by going through it. The only way out of the distress of dealing with stress is to let him make us bigger on the inside when we're going through the confining, constraining pressure of it on the outside. He can do that through you. All you have to do is recognize that he is in you, he is with you, he is for you, and it shall be well. I want to pray that you have a blessed weekend, and I trust that you have a place to worship and that you're faithful to the house of worship you're a part of. If you have no place to worship, join us at COTLE Orlando online, or join us here in Orlando if you're here 9 a.m. or 11:15. I trust it will be a blessing to you. Talk to you soon.